Hey guys, you are listening to and watching the latest episode of K100 Sports here on the Lock Betting YouTube channel. Now, this is a very different version of K100 Sports to what I usually do. Usually, you will see my face sitting there on the video and I will run through a few subjects that I want to talk about in the world of sports betting for that week. I'll also try to give out some free picks. Unfortunately, this week, the very week that I have sent you guys or tried to send more guys to this channel, I am incredibly sick. I am bedbound. I cannot even get to the usual area where I would sit and record. I also don't want to shower. I also don't want to do my hair. I don't want to make myself look presentable because that just wouldn't be possible in the state that I'm in. So for this one video, we are going to do it differently. I could have just got out of doing the video, but as we are in a situation where I have promised you that the lock for this week's show would be on this edition of K100 Sports, I have decided to go ahead with it in this format for this week only. So there will be a lock coming for the EPL at the end of this show. Moving forward, the next episode of K100 Sports will be a mid-season report for the EPL. So we will be past match day 19, which is the halfway mark, and we will be looking at futures moving forward and how the rest of the season might play out. The following week, we will be previewing the NFL playoffs. So we'll be looking at the NFL playoff picture and I'll be previewing how that will play out. So we're going to go between those two subjects here on this show. And the first thing I wanted to talk about was yesterday's win for the New York Giants over the Indianapolis Colts. Now, we're used to the Colts doing this. The Colts always find a way to have a horrible loss that stops them from getting to the playoffs. So that wasn't really the huge part of the surprise. The Colts blowing it, big surprise, not really. The surprise was that the Giants were locked in with the number one pick in the draft. There probably would have been some plans geared towards having the number one pick in the draft. I would assume that that they would have kept the coach on because obviously with this record that you have, it's going to get you fired at most teams. Like, you cannot have 2 wins when you are a franchise the size of the New York Giants. It's not acceptable to have 2 wins, but obviously there are plans in place for next season, and therefore it was even more surprising that the Giants would go and win this game and take themselves out of the number one position. Now, I was fairly certain that this team would be looking at drafting Cam Ward. Now, Cam Ward certainly isn't the strongest quarterback to come through the draft system. He's not the strongest number one we've ever seen. I would say that if he's successful, he would probably be as good as Jordan Love, which is decent, but it's not top tier. It's not the caliber of quarterbacks that we've had coming through the draft previously, but it still would have been a massive upgrade for New York. And by getting that win, they are now in a position where they won't get a number one pick. So it was very odd to see them doing that. I always say that players don't play to lose. The players don't want to lose because they would be the ones getting replaced. What benefit is it to the players to lose for better players to come in and take their places when they have the spot on the field? But what New York were doing prior to this game was they were picking teams and picking players and making decisions that would ensure that they would lose. And that all suddenly changed yesterday. Although that was heavily aided by the Colts not being able to do anything, that defense was unbelievably bad yesterday. Everything the Giants did resulted in points. So it was just a very odd one. It is a good system on paper where it's designed to keep things equal, But it is also very odd when you get to this point of the season. It's hard to explain to someone that doesn't watch the NFL, oh, hey, they're better off losing, because that isn't really applicable in any sport. I don't know how you eradicate it. And with the Giants winning yesterday, you can argue that there's no need to eradicate it because what the Giants did actually showed integrity. Stupid, but there was integrity involved there as well. And that brings me over to this week coming up, week 18, where teams will be looking at the Chiefs for a massive favour. Andy Reid controls the fate of the number 7 seed in the AFC. Now, logically, I didn't think there was any chance in hell that the Chiefs would try to win this game against Denver on week 18. The Giants situation has made me think a little bit differently, but still, it would go down as one of the stupidest wins in history if it pans out this way. So let's say the Kansas City Chiefs do win and Andy Reid fields a team that are capable of winning that game. And the Chiefs end up finishing 16-1 on the season. They then allow their arch rivals, the Bengals, into the playoffs via the back door. The Bengals go to Buffalo and beat Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. And then the first team that the Chiefs see are the very Cincinnati Bengals that they allowed into the playoffs by beating Denver, and Joe Burrow returns to what they call Burrowhead. So the Chiefs suddenly are facing the number 1 team that they do not want to face. Now, for me, I think the Chiefs have massively rode their luck this season, although they have been much, much better in recent weeks. It seems like they have flicked a switch, which is scary. I'm still looking to oppose them this time around, and I do believe that in the Baltimore Ravens, we have a team who have the game to beat them. They are capable of beating them. If their defense plays well, and Derrick Henry and Lamar can move the ball with their feet, and also Lamar can move it through the air, they are capable of avenging what was an awful loss last year in the championship game. So I think that will be your championship game. I think the Bills will do what they always do, which is fall short. But it would be a crazy scenario if we see Joe Burrow and the Bengals in the playoffs, and then the Chiefs need to see the Bengals after they let them in. I just cannot see that happening. I thought it was almost 0% chance. And then I saw what the Giants did yesterday. And as I said, whilst it has integrity attached to it, it also has a large element of stupidity attached to it as well. And Andy Reid taking his Chiefs team to Denver and winning that game would be equally on that level of stupidity. So let's move on with the EPL. We have 3 games today. Manchester United will be in action. I cover that game over on BetMUFC, and there is a lock for that game as well. I already covered the other 2 games, but one of these 2 games has a lock attached to it. And the lock comes from the game here between Aston Villa and Brighton. Aston Villa are the 11-10 favourites, 11-10 best price to win this game. More widely available at 21-20 plus 105 on the money line. It's 11-4 on the draw, and it's 23-10 here on Brighton. For me, this is a great spot to take Aston Villa, especially coming off that loss last time out against Newcastle. This is a bounce-back spot at Villa Park. This team is strong at Villa Park. The only team to have beaten in the season was Arsenal, and that was a game where Aston Villa dominated it. It needed an incredible goalkeeping performance from Raya to ensure that Arsenal left with the points there. So other than that, Aston Villa have been incredible at home this season. They are a far better home team than they are an away team. They've also improved their form coming into this game, despite the fact they lost to Newcastle. That was a blip off the back of them getting back into form, and they did have a bad period before that as well. But they've now won 4 of their last 6 Premier League matches. Brighton, They are on the slide at the moment, and I knew this would happen with this team. They try to press, they try to sit in, they try to create overloads, they try to play every modern day tactic, and doing a bit of everything was very successful at the start of the season. But now they look like they are on tired legs, and the Christmas period isn't a great time to look tired. Brighton are on a 6-match winless streak in the Premier League and have won just 2 of their last 11 matches in all competitions. Aston Villa like playing Brighton at Villa Park. They've won 4 of the last 5 home meetings with Brighton, and I really do like Aston Villa here off this bounce back in this bounce back spot. Brighton didn't really carry too much threat when they took on Brentford at home in their last outing. And Aston Villa come into this one having scored exactly 2 goals in 3 of the last 5 home meetings with Brighton. And the way Brighton looked against Brentford, a couple of goals would be good enough here to win this game. Ollie Watkins comes back into the starting lineup. John Duran got suspended, and that was a large part of the reason why they just weren't competitive in that Newcastle game, because Duran got sent off. Ollie Watkins will come in and have a point to prove to his manager as he gets restored to the starting lineup, and he's at an interesting price of 6-4 plus 150 to score anytime here in this game. But the lock here on this episode is going to be to take Aston Villa to get the win here on the money line at the price of 11-10 or 21-20 plus 105. Both are fine. We'll take that on the money line here as the lock for this show. Before we close out, I wanted to give special mention to Mo Salah, who has just been absolutely unplayable this season. I want to talk about Salah because this is something that came up in our group chat, in our lock betting group chat. And Mo Salah should have already won the Ballon d'Or. It should have happened either in 2018 or 2019. The fact that he's never been close is absolutely criminal. And it's largely in part to him being Egyptian, because this isn't a country that you associate with a Ballon d'Or winner. As much as FIFA want to say that they are invested in African football, want to grow African football, it's very difficult for an African player to win the Ballon d'Or. But Mo Salah's club form has been the most consistent of any player not named Messi or Ronaldo. For me, when you're looking across the last decade, Mo Salah is right there. And previously, you can talk about the likes of Bale, Luis Suarez and Neymar as to who is the next best. Even Kylian Mbappe, some people mention. But for me, it's Mo Salah for the level of consistency that he has delivered. He's never had a bad season since he started for Liverpool. Some people say that last season was a bad season. Yeah, by Salah's standards. And he was injured coming off the African nations as well. And that was what was frustrating for him. He looked like a frustrating player. He took his frustrations out on Jurgen Klopp. Jurgen Klopp was frustrated because he knew Salah wasn't fit, but it's difficult to leave out Mo Salah because Salah is a legend. He's an icon. He's a game changer, but he wasn't playing that way when he returned. Prior to that, he was on fire, and he has been on absolute fire already this season. In fact, it's fair to say right here in at the end of December, not even going into 2025. 2025 hasn't even began. Mo Salah has already won the Player of the Year. He would have to, at this point, get a significant injury or drop off the face of the earth to not end up winning the Player of the Season in the Premier League. For me, he's a genuine Ballon d'Or contender. And in addition to that, due to the performances of Salah, who has carried this team this season, the Premier League title is over. Liverpool are already priced up at 1-3 minus 300. It's unfortunate because when Liverpool had a little run of results where they were drawing games and Chelsea were getting back into it, Liverpool were priced up at 4-5 minus 125. And I was convinced that Chelsea wouldn't stick around. I knew that Arsenal were a little bit too far back, in my opinion, to make a run. And I really wish I had jumped on that 4-5 minus 125. It's always difficult to take a team at that price. It's even more difficult now at 1-3, just because Man City have been so dominant and we're not used to another team just taking over and being a dominant force. But this is what Liverpool have done this season. And they can do it again next year. There's no reason for this not to ride into next year, because it doesn't look like there's going to be any contender on the horizon. Arsenal need to significantly address their number 9 position, and they need to go out in the summer and buy someone like a Victor Osimhen to really compete. As for Chelsea, it still seems like it's a little bit early for them to be consistent enough to actually push the Liverpool team, this version of Liverpool, who look like they can win every single trophy, which would be intolerable for me as a Manchester United fan, but it is a possibility. But with all of this said, when I'm talking about Liverpool not just dominating this season, but carrying on next year and being a dominating force for a longer period of time, they need to sign Mo Salah. I do not need to re-sign Mo Salah to a contract extension. I do not understand why this has not happened. And Mo Salah is being criticised by Liverpool legends for just simply answering questions. Mo Salah is being asked continuously about his contract, and he's openly and honestly answering the question and saying we are nowhere near a deal. Now, he's being criticised for that because he's being accused of putting the attention on him when it should be on Liverpool. Well, he's in a no-win situation because these players are accused of being robots and being emotionless and being out of touch with the fans. And then when somebody gives an honest answer to a question, he's criticised of making it all about him. So I have no issue with what Salah's doing. For me, he's answered the questions that he's been asked, and on the pitch, he's absolutely tearing it up. It would be a robbery at this point if he's not in the conversation for the Ballon d'Or and the Premier League title race and the Premier League Player of the Season. For me, is already done and dusted. It's already over. It's all going to be heading to Liverpool, and it's all going to be heading to Mo Salah. That's it for me and this edition of K100 Sports. Thanks for watching.